Hello, welcome to the Authentic Role Playing Podcast, featuring independent DMs and GMs of tabletop role-playing games. My name is Alexis, Smolensk, and I'm coming to you from Calgary, Alberta, in Western Canada, where 10 hours after a bout of laryngitis, my voice seems fine. Today I'm talking with Jonathan Becker, the writer of the BX Black Razor blog, along with the books The BX Companion and the fantasy adventure game 5 Ancient Kingdoms. Links for these can be found in the description below. Jon is coming to us from Seattle, Washington. Hello, Jon. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Alexis. Good to finally talk with you.
Yes, it's been a long time. And you've been very supportive of me, so it's great to have you here.
Thank you, Alexis. Thank you. I'm very pleased to be able to participate.
Now, for those who are unfamiliar with the podcast, I'll just explain that we're ordinary, everyday role players. We're not celebrities. We're not experts. We're just people running our own games. Some of my guests have been here for a long time, have been doing this for a long time, and some are just starting. How long have you been playing RPGs, Jon? How did you get started in gaming?
Well, as near as I can remember, I received my first role-playing game around the age of 9 years old. This would have been 1981 or 1982. It was the Tom Moldvay edited edition of Basic Dungeons & Dragons. I asked my parents to buy it for me, specifically my mother. I believe we got it at a JCPenney store. This is when you could still buy the game in department toy stores. Like I said, I was 81 or 82, and I've been playing pretty much since then with breaks. Right now I'm not running a game mainly because my real life has become very busy. I'm a single parent half of every month as my wife travels on business and I have 2 small children I'm raising. I'm kind of waiting for my kids to get a little older so I can start gaming with them. As far as tabletop role-playing goes, now maybe I'm not giving them enough credit for being able to do role-playing, but my son, who's older, he's age 7, and the first time we tried running something, it was a little bit outside of his area of knowledge, I guess. But that was about a year and a half ago, actually, so he might be ready now. Mainly, most of my games that I've been playing these days are board games, tabletop games. We've been playing Axis and Allies pretty much nonstop for the last 3 weeks. You know, we play card games and magic cards and cribbage and everything in between. But role-playing has been put on hold for now.
It seems like you're using the Axis and Allies to lead into the more complicated game.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. The reason why we're playing Axis and Allies is because my son has a passion for World War II at this point in history. And so this was a Christmas gift I got for him, and that's why we're playing it. I did not start role-playing through any kind of tabletop wargaming or any kind of miniatures gaming. I went right into role-playing, and only later did I develop a taste for wargaming in my early 20s, I'd say. And what I played is the fantasy war games like Warhammer 40,000 and other Games Workshop games of that ilk.
You haven't quit BX. You're just on a break.
Yes, I would not say I've quit role-playing. I'm like, what is it they say about Americans? We're all temporarily embarrassed millionaires. I'm kind of a temporarily embarrassed game master. I still keep my hand in as far as reading, writing, thinking, designing. I still have a desire to play. I just don't have the option at this time. I'm busy with parents' clubs, soccer coaching, the day-to-day chores of running a household. But at some point in the future, when I have the time again, I would certainly like to be playing again.
Do you feel any trepidation about starting?
No. I think that there was a time when I took a hiatus from running Dungeons and Dragons games for a few years, and I should say what's considered old school Dungeons and Dragons like BX or AD&D. I took a hiatus of probably close to 2 decades. I'm not doing the math in my head at the moment, but it was a substantial period of time. And when I went back to running BXD&D, at first I did have trepidation. This would have been probably around 2009. And at that time, I was wondering, could I still do this? Would I still be able to run games? Would people have any kind of fun playing these games? And what I found was, yes, I could still run them. Yes, people still enjoyed them. People still wanted to play those kinds of games. And since I got off the horse and got back on it again, I know that it's not a problem for me to do it again in the future.
Thinking about that hiatus and the one you're on now, which obviously is a lot shorter, what do you think you've learned in those periods when you have the luxury to think about gaming without the pressure of actually gaming?
Well, my first hiatus, it was a hiatus from Dungeons & Dragons play, not from gaming in general. I played a variety of other role-playing games. Things from the Palladium systems, the World of Darkness systems, a variety of independent games, and I did play 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons when it first came out in 2000 or 2001. I played it for about 3 or 4 years before I got really tired of it. So I didn't stop gaming. I just stopped playing old school Dungeons & Dragons. That's an important distinction because there's something about old school Dungeons & Dragons that I think is a little special. But to get to your question, because I was gaming, I wasn't really thinking or reflecting on gaming while I was gaming. If that makes sense. Yeah.
No, I misunderstood what you meant by hiatus.
When I say a hiatus, I mean a hiatus from long-term campaign play. As opposed to one-off games, trying something out for a few weeks, giving it up, trying something new for a few weeks, giving it up, getting some people interested or meeting people who are interested in trying something new. There's something that happens in long-term campaign play that's very different from short-term games, convention games, one-off games, things like that. Now I'm on a hiatus from actual role-playing, and I've had chances to reflect, and it makes me excited at the prospect of getting back into gaming. I feel like in this time period where I'm not doing any gaming at all, I've had a chance to reflect and consider and process what it is to be a game master, what kind of experience you're giving to your players, how and why are the best ways to run a game, or how I would like to best run a game. And so I'm excited at the prospect of starting again and what I want to take to it. And it's because I've had a period of reflection. But I wouldn't say the reflection is caused by the hiatus. I would say the reflection has been caused by the things I've been reading, things I've been researching, and the ways that my own direction of design and theorizing has gone.
Would you recommend that somebody put their game down for a year and just read about the game?
I would not recommend that. I would not recommend taking a break entirely from gaming if you had the option, because it's so much fun. But maybe take a break from game mastering. Take a break from running games to reflect on what it is you want as a game master. I was recently watching a television show called Top Chef. I don't know if you're familiar with this one.
I am.
So I was watching it, and they were talking about the chefs, these young hotshot chefs, having to find their voices in their cooking. And they found it through this kind of crash course in cooking that they do in this television show, but they get a lot of feedback and input from more experienced chefs who have been successful, who have made great food, and they've learned from the experience both from what they've cooked and how they've been critiqued, and they learn and they grow, and it helps them find their voice in cooking, and that's what they all talk about. That's what they were talking about in this particular season I was watching, and it really hit home to me that there's a little bit of that as far as being a game master. In a way, you're a chef trying to find the best way to prepare your games for your players, just like a chef prepares a meal for the people who eat the meal, right? So having a break from game mastering, because we don't have a whole lot of mentors who can critique our gaming, and there aren't master game masters out there. There's no similar competition that I'm aware of.
Right.
There are no mentors who are critiquing us and providing us with valuable feedback. And so one of the ways that we can start to reflect is to take a break from running games ourselves and play in other people's games and see how they run games and compare that to ourselves and really take a good hard look at the games that we play in and the games that we've run and what works and what doesn't and why and reflect and try to process that to find our own voices.
So do you think you found your voice?
Well, that's why I'm so excited to play again, because I want to see if I have or not. My most recent theorizing about it that I've come to is that the thing about good game mastering, and I'm probably not going to say this right, but I'll try it anyway. What's wonderful about role-playing is it's experiential. I guess that's the word that keeps coming to my mind, experiential. It's an experience that you have to experience, and that's facilitated by a certain style of game mastering. It's not about creating a wonderful story or plot or adventure or scenario. It's not about creating interesting or creative antagonists for the players to overcome or challenges or riddles that they have to solve. It's not about that. It's about the experience that you can deliver to your players by whatever means necessary. In your book, How to Run, you talked about how when you run games, you're very animated and active, roving about the table and keeping the energy up as this. And I do that too when I'm, in the zone, as it were. And by doing that, by keeping that energy up, what I'm doing is I'm keeping my players engaged. I think that this is what has made me a successful game master in the past, because I don't think I'm incredibly original in my ideas. I don't think I'm incredibly creative in the adventures that I create. But the way I run my adventures is such that I can engage my players, put them in the mindset that they're no longer players sitting at a table with a bunch of scribbled numbers in front of themselves waiting for their chance to roll it and die. They're sitting there and they're feeling like they are in the game. I'm trying to create a fantasy in their minds, trying to facilitate their own escapism into the game. And I think that good game mastering is doing that, providing that experience for folks, because that is what role-playing can offer more than any other type of game. That ability to zap you into that imaginary sphere.
Do you think that your players are aware that that's what you're doing?
I don't think that I was aware that that's what I was doing. It's only upon reflection in this period of hiatus that I've come to this conclusion. In looking back at my own gaming, how I run games, what was successful and what was not. I've been a popular game master in the past. I've had lots of people who wanted to play at my table and wanted to keep coming back to my table, even though, I was what some folks might consider a killer DM, where it's perfectly happy to wipe out the entire party of players with some fantastic encounter or something. And I would cackle about it. I killed you. I made no bones about it, and people would show up and say, oh, we're ready for Jon to kill us again tonight. But they were coming for the experience. And when they succeeded, they felt great. And when they failed, they felt bad, but they didn't feel cheated. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
They didn't feel cheated, but they felt like, I screwed up. I should have done this different. I should have done this better. Like I said, thinking about this, considering it, reflecting on it, reading about other GMs, how they've gamed. I'll tell you, this hobby became very popularized because of the original people who were running the game. Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson, and all those Lake Geneva folks, and I know Arneson was from Minnesota, and reading about how Gygax was running his games even in his later years at conventions, his style of gaming is so much more like that. His style of running games was an experiential style where he would try to challenge players, and then in between encounters, he would step out of character and he would pull back the curtain, explain to people what had happened, what could have happened, what should have happened, what didn't happen. He would show all the nuts and bolts of the game to engage the players in what's going on.
here you are. You say that you didn't know that you were doing this for the players ahead of time, and that now you do know. We assume your players didn't know that's why they kept coming back to you as a DM to get killed. How forthcoming are you going to be with them now that you know?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to refine the techniques that worked. What I would try to do before was to give them a real sense of being in a place. Because the game master creates this imaginary environment. The game master paints the picture for them, tells them what they hear, what they smell, what they see, all their senses.
Yes.
Tries to create in them the feeling that they're there. You have to be knowledgeable about the system itself, which comes from practice and time playing, but knowledgeable about your own world that you've created. So knowing your own world in the same way that if someone talks to you about it, you can tell them about it as if it were a real place. And again, you can see the people who have long-running campaigns of the most fantastic variety could tell you about their worlds as if they were real places. If you read descriptions of how M. Barker ran his games in the Tecumseh world setting, he could tell you what was going on in various countries at any particular time. He could tell you who the movers and shakers were, who the political parties were and stuff, because it was so real in his mind. It's no different from Tolkien talking and writing about Middle Earth. He has all these pages and pages and pages of unpublished journals about his stories of this whole mythology he created. It was a real world for him in his mind that he started creating as a small child, and that was what led him to studying linguistics, so that he could actually better create the world that was already in his head. And so having that knowledge of your own fantasy world, and I'm not talking about a campaign setting, I'm talking about even just an individual adventure location, so that you can describe it to someone. So you can describe what the stairs are like that they're going down, what the walls look like, the cracks in them, or the smell from the, liquid that's running under a door or whatever. To have that idea, to be able to put yourself, the game master, in that place, so that then you can bring the players into the place with you, and then give them a sense of adventure. A feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm here, and what's going to happen next, and is it worth it? Am I going to find a big treasure or something like that? And what I haven't done in the past, and again, I would say thanks to you, I'm now thinking about this from the dungeon's front door and how to run, but especially the dungeon's front door. The idea of fostering players' camaraderie, getting them to act as teams cooperating with each other so that they feel like they're in it together. I've done that in my gaming, but only subconsciously. I wasn't purposely trying to create that. I wasn't trying to draw them together into a tight-knit group. They either formed that bond themselves or else they got killed. I want to try to foster that in them. And by making adventures that are adversarial enough that they have no choice but to rely on each other.
Well, let me turn that around, though. As a player, how would you try to foster that from the other side of the table?
If I was a player, how would I try to create that?
Yeah. There's a lot of people who are listening. They have real problem players, and they're not sure how they make that happen at a table.
That's an idea that I don't know that I can answer. It may be that I have not had enough experience working within a group. It may be that one of the reasons I sit so comfortably in the game master's chair is because I'm not much of a team player. It's hard for me to foster that. I've found in this last year my first opportunity to coach children in sport that I love it. It's just about, other than game mastering a really good game, it's my favorite thing I've ever done is coaching, because I can take a group of children, I can analyze what each of their different strengths are, I can help foster those strengths and then get them to work as a team and make them into a really wonderful team that all love each other and cooperate and no one feels left out, and even the kids who aren't as good are being helped by the kids who are stronger, and the kids who are stronger don't resent the kids who are lesser. And being a coach and inspiring people to find the best in themselves, it's something I found I can do fairly easily. But as a player sitting at the table, what has happened in the past is I often end up trying to assert myself in a way that assumes leadership. And that has often bred resentment in the players that I've been with. I don't know, I'd say that's probably too strong. But when you try to assume a mantle of leadership and it's not given to you, that authority is not bequeathed on you by the players at the table, just trying to step into that role because no one else is doing it. You find people quickly saying, why is this guy hogging the spotlight? And I've tried doing it both ways. I've tried being the guy who leads from the front, and I've tried being the person who holds back and lets someone else take the lead, and I just act in a support role. Neither of those two strategies, they did not work the way I hoped that they would work. And for me personally, I found both to be unsatisfying experiences from a player point of view.
Maybe you need to have a better coaching environment in order to find yourself as a player.
You may not have the experience to do that, the experience of being a player.
Has being a dungeon master helped you coach children in sports?
I don't know that it has. That's the interesting thing. I think that there's something in my personality that lends itself to that kind of position. I've experienced it in other ways in my working experience when I've been in a role as a trainer or kind of, doing management of other people. There are other issues that come up that make it less fun. I think that I don't know that it's a control streak. I mean, there's certainly that, and that part of me that wants to manage things. But there's something about it that fits my personality.
Do you take the position that DMs are born and not made?
There was a school of thought in the beginning of the independent or the indie RPG movement that game system matters for role-playing games. You can't just use one system for any type of gaming you want to do. And I really bought into that hard because I found there to be veracity there. I found there to be truth in it. But one of the arguments that kept coming up against that is that it's not the system that matters, it's the game master. People would say, if the game master is good, then it doesn't matter what the system is, you'll have a good game. And hand in hand with that, if the game master is bad, it doesn't matter how well the system fits the game, you're going to have a bad game. And I used to disagree with that strongly, that system facilitates play. If the rules of the system work with the setting, the genre, the themes that you're trying to work with, if you have a system that helps that, you're going to have a good game. And it's going to make up for poor game masters as long as they're following the rules. But now that I've come to this understanding for myself, for this theory about gaming as being this experiential thing, I see now the importance of having a good game master, of someone who can provide that experience to the players. And it's a question I have. Can that be taught? I think that it can be taught. I think that it can be learned. So in that way, game masters are not necessarily born, just to come back to your question roundabout. But I don't think anyone's teaching it. And I think most people are having to learn it for themselves. And I think, like myself, some people have natural inclinations that help them pick it up like a knack. And I think that a lot of people could benefit from some sort of training. And that training is not coming from the people who are the heads of the industry. And that is a source of frustration for me.
You're going to be starting a campaign. How do you intend to structure it?
Well, I haven't gotten that far yet. First off, I'd like to create my own campaign setting. And I'd like to, kind of build it from the ground up as far as a cosmology of why things exist this way, how things exist this way, why does magic work this way, how does magic work. Even though the systems itself are going to be pretty much the same as what you would find in your average Dungeons and Dragons book, assuming that I use one of these older editions, which is what I'm most comfortable with.
Yes.
I'll be reskinning things or providing the background color that is specific to my campaign setting. It's like if you had the cosmology that the Christian God and the Christian way of thinking and all clerical spell can only come from Yahweh, for example. You can look at a druid character as being a more primitive, shamanic kind of priest, and that's why their levels are limited to 14 and why they don't have like resurrection magic, because they don't have the higher Christian values of the campaign setting, and that's why they're limited in those ways, even though they have some more primitive shamanic elemental magic in their repertoire. That is an example of having the cosmology of the campaign setting tells you how to color the system so that the system rules make sense. The players coming to the game will understand the rules because the rules are still going to be the same systems, but because I have that cosmology in place, I have explanations for things, for why things are the way they are, so that I can give that information to the players to help them with that escapist or immersive process, and so that they don't have to, keep asking me, why can't my wizard use a sword again? What's the reason for this? And then I'll have that reasoning there. Again, making the world real in my mind so that I can make it real in the player's mind. At this point, because I don't have players, part of the campaign creation process is a little bit of a give and take with players, seeing what they're interested in running in and, helping to facilitate that. There's a part of it you say, I'm going to run this medieval European system or setting, and if you don't like it, go find someone else's game. I'm going to run a setting in Mars, but it's like 10,000 years in the future, and the Earthlings crashed there, and then they lost contact with planet Earth, and we don't know what happened because there's a dark ages there, and now you're on Mars, or whatever. But magic works, whatever the setting is. So you say, are you guys interested in playing this? And if they say yes, then okay, we're off to the races. But even as you play, they might say, oh, I want to develop this aspect of the game system, or I want to see this, and then the campaign grows and evolves as you help facilitate play for the players to help keep them engaged so that the play is more fun for the players and more immersive, all that. So I don't have any players at the moment, so it's hard for me to do the give and take, and so all I'm left with is trying to think in my mind, what kind of setting do I want to run? And I've had a hard time deciding on one. To get to your original question, how do I plan on structuring my campaign? One of the things I've had the most difficulty with in the past is actually creating campaigns. I've been more interested, or it's come easier for me to just create adventures. That is to say, a situation for the players to explore, or a scenario for the players to explore. And my campaigns have mostly been linked adventures, kind of episodic play. It's a paradigm that I've found easy for me to work within, because I can, again, I was not purposefully thinking this at the time, but looking back and reflecting on it now, I see what I was doing it was a paradigm in which I could readily engage the players, taking small chunks, making it real for them, helping immerse them in the experience. And it wasn't important to me what the larger world looked like, what the politics or the movers and shakers would look like. It's like Jack Vance's The Dying Earth. Every town that Cudgel goes to is a different environment with a different set of rules and a different problem to solve or different type of trouble to get into. So I've run campaigns, but to create a campaign from scratch for Dungeons and Dragons, I've had a hard time doing that successfully, except when it evolved organically out of episodic play. In my more recent gaming, after coming back from my hiatus from Dungeons and Dragons, trying to create campaigns has been very stop and go. It's very difficult for me to come up with a setting and then put players into it and sustain it. Either because I don't like how it ends up looking, I get sick of my own ideas after a while. If it doesn't evolve organically, it's not a cooperative process of building. It just haven't had the same wheels that my organically evolved campaigns did. And this was actually the same case with my Will of Darkness campaigns. I got tired of running them. I had players who wanted to come and let's run vampire, and okay, here we are in the city, and blah, 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 blah. And, I got bored with it. I didn't want to be the only person creating content, like a video game designer creating an MMORPG for people to adventure in or something. I didn't want to do that. That's why I come back to the idea that it's, even for the dungeon master or game master themselves, there's an experiential part of it that there has to be some play that goes on there. It's not just about the creation process. It's not just about being a world builder. I can build worlds all day long, and I've done it before, especially when you pull out a new edition of Dungeons and Dragons. You say, oh, this is a neat class, or this is a neat race that they've added here, and what could I do? I could create a whole city of this particular creature and stuff. You can create the whole set. You can world build to your heart's content. But if you're not playing, and that is a form of play, this world building.
Sure.
But it's not the highest form of play that occurs in role play. And it's not the thing that makes role playing a special activity. When you talk or write in your blog about role playing as being similar to golf, and that it's difficult, it's something to be mastered, and something to play for the sake of playing and trying to do that self-mastery or mastery of the ball or whatever, and that it's hard, and that we play it because it's hard. I can't help but go back to thinking about gaming as experiential. If you're not doing that organic, evolving work, you're not getting the full challenge out of it. And it doesn't have the same hold over you that it could. I used to, when I played 3rd edition D&D, I would create a character. I would build a character using all their little feats and skills and all the different things that went with it, all the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
I would build interesting characters and say, how can I build a really interesting character? So I graph them all out on an Excel sheet. I would plan basically the character's entire development from level 1 to level 20, which was the maximum level. And then when I could see what the end result was, I'd say, now there's no reason for me to bother playing. I know where this character's going. I know what it's going to look like at the end. It's just a matter of getting there. And all I'm doing is like playing a video game, trying to farm the right pieces to build this optimal build that I want. And that's not the magic of the game. It's why it feels so hollow to me to play it. And why I think the people who still love 3rd edition D&D or Pathfinder or 3.5, they're all versions of the same D20 system. All the people who still love it and play it, they have drifted far from the original system. They're playing games that cut out huge swaths of the rules so that they can try to create organic play within that system, I think. Now, I don't know that for sure, having not sat down with them. But, I talk to a lot of people who play Pathfinder and who enjoy it. And I say, really? You play this? What do you think of this and that and the other? And they're like, oh, well, we don't use those rules. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, so you're not actually playing that system, right? You're playing something that you crafted and changed for yourself.
When you say that you want your games to evolve organically and they wind up evolving in a way that displeases you, it sounds like you're frustrated with that.
I'm not trying to get it to evolve organically. I'm saying when it's worked in the past, it's because it has evolved organically. And what has happened is that on reflection, I was not thinking of this at the time, when it wasn't evolving and I was the one responsible for the content, I was dissatisfied with the game experience. That I was dissatisfied with the campaign that I was running. Not dissatisfied necessarily with the game sessions or the adventures or the gameplay with the players, but with the campaign. And when I was dissatisfied with the campaign, it made me not want to continue running the campaign, which prevented me from getting to my preferred style of gameplay, which is long-term gameplay that shows development over time of the characters and of the world in which they adventure. And when that happened, my general response of frustration was I would have less energy to bring to the sessions because it'd be like, oh, I'm running this game for my players, but I don't really want to run it anymore. I'm probably, it all gets jumbled in my head, Alexis. I've been out of the gaming world for like 5 years. One problem is that the last few years I was gaming regularly. I was not running any campaigns. I was doing a lot of game design, and thus I was doing a lot of play testing of game designs. So when you're play testing, I would play test something for a few weeks, and then play test something else for a few weeks, and then I'd play test something else for a few weeks. And so play testing was necessary for my design process, but it wasn't the type of gaming I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Ideally, I would sit down and run a game, but my time is limited, and I could only do one game a week, and I needed to play test at some point, and so I was play testing. But when I was trying to actually run Dungeons and Dragons, not play test my own designs, but just run games for people, I would come from a point of view of, okay, in the past I've had these nice long campaigns that worked well, and they had all this stuff, and all I need to do is get some first level characters together and have them adventure until they get to a high level, and as they do that, they're going to develop passions for things or inspirations for things or ideas of things they want to do, and I'll develop a world around them. But I should probably have some basis for that. I should have a hometown. I should know what the local duke is up to. I should know who the monsters are in the area, or the dungeons, or why these dungeons are there. Trying to create a foundation for a campaign setting. But if there was no evolution happening organically, I guess I should say I just didn't have the patience to let it all germinate together. I was working with generic ideas and not one that really engaged me fully. I was working with a palette that was as basic as possible to try to suss out what my players wanted. And then my players, I don't want to throw my players under the bus, but, they were looking to me for cues of what they were supposed to be doing. And I wasn't maybe providing enough for there to be that kind of cooperative development of the setting.
So the setting would stagnate.
The setting would stagnate, yes. I would stagnate. The setting is probably still there waiting for me to go pick it up again if I want to.
But why do so if you don't want to?
Exactly. And so I haven't.
So I don't want to rush to say, well, you should do this or you should do that or some such. I'm more interested in why the problem occurs or how the problem manifests. And that's what you've answered. Other people are having this exact same experience, and probably as you in a repeated fashion. It's only by actually looking at the issue that we can figure it out. So,
the thought that I have is that I would come up with an idea that was so engaging, it would hold my attention for the next 20 years. I hope that the sarcasm is coming across. Intellectually, that sounds like I can understand that's probably not going to happen. It's only actually in talking through this that I think that it has to be something that happens organically.
Well, a lot of business people talk about if they could come up with a business that was so interesting, it would sustain their interest in business, in running that business for, as you say, 20 years. And what happened is they realized that it doesn't matter what the business is, it's how they look at themselves and how they measure their own activity. That business becomes something that's more about the internal than it is the external.
Well, again, I've always assumed that a lot of part of business was making money. And if you can make money, that'll kind of sustain your interest.
A lot of people find by the time they get into their 40s that they've made money. They already know how to make money, and making money isn't sustaining their interest anymore.
Well, once I discover how to make money, Alexis, maybe I'll have that problem.
Well, I know how to make money. What you do is you care about nothing else.
See, that's the thing. I care about a lot of other things.
Yeah, see, and that's why you don't make a lot of money, right? Because if you cared about only money, you wouldn't be here because this isn't making you any money.
No, it sure is.
And that's how people who make money think, is if it's not making my money, I'm not doing it.
Well, and if I want to just run games, I could run games. If I wanted to just be a game master and I didn't care about my own level of enjoyment and participating in the activity, I could do that. I could run something that did not engage me. I mean, I could steel myself to show up and put my butt in the seat and bring stuff to the players. And like I said, I can run 3rd edition D&D. I've done it before. It would be ugly and clunky and not a lot of fun, but I could do it. I can run other game systems that I won't go ahead and disparage at this time, but there are systems that I know how to run that would not play very well, but I could run them if that's all it was about. If someone was going to pay me to do it, I could show up and do it for $50 an hour or something.
Yeah.
But since no one's paying me,
it's not what you're in it for anyway.
Yeah, I might as well be doing it for my own enjoyment, and so I'm trying to find a way to do that. Yeah, no, it's an interesting quandary, but here's the thing that I keep coming back to. I know how to run a game. That having the campaign that maybe there was luck involved in my earlier campaigns. I had the right group of friends. We had the right chemistry between us. We had the right types of people providing the right types of input, the right type of conflict, the right type of drama. Because, we had personality conflicts between the players. I'm not saying in the game.
Yeah.
But between the players themselves, it provided a lot of heat that could be used to cook something very fun and engaging and exciting for all of us. And maybe that was just luck on our part and, the fires of youth and all that. So maybe that's just like the great campaign. Maybe it's a unicorn for me that I'll be chasing for the rest of my life. But even without the great campaign, I still know how to run a game, to engage players and engage myself and enjoy ourselves. And I look forward to doing that again, and I look forward to doing it because of the experiential aspect of it that I've learned how to do. Now, if I could translate that to long-term play, if I could find a way to get an experiential high off of running a campaign, I would do that. But right now, it's kind of eluding me how I would go about doing that.
Obviously, I want you to be able to do that. I want everybody to be able to do that.
Sure.
But I think maybe you're on a vision quest.
Well, yeah. Well, I just wanted to, I knew there was a reason why I said the stuff I said there a moment ago. I also wanted to add, I would really, really, really like other game masters to at least come to the point at which I'm at of being able to run a game session in such a way as to engage their players and provide them with an experiential high of playing the game. That's more important to me actually at this point than even finding my own groove about campaigns. Sure, I have my own problems to deal with, coming up with campaign and stuff, but kind of like to help some other people just get to good gaming.
I also had a campaign that I ran for 10 years between 1983 and 1993 that I haven't had repeated. That campaign, I mean, things happened on that campaign, and there was a fire that happened among those players that I don't expect that I will ever encounter again. Part of that was because we were young, and part of that was because of the way that I ran at the time. But I don't think that this is unique.
It feels kind of a bit like dredging up past failures. This podcast feels like I'm like to look back in the past. Oh, I could do this in the past. Or I had this great game that ended for whatever reason. And now I can't get back to it. That feels very negative or bleak or hopeless, and I don't think it is.
No, I think it's cathartic. I think it's good to talk about these things.
Oh, well, sure, but I mean that's why I have a blog, Alexis. I'm cathartic on my blog. That's where I get to rant and rave and rail and dredge up my blog is mostly stream of consciousness. I just have to have a place to put my thoughts. Anyway, I don't want to come off as being so negative. I don't.
I don't think you do.
Oh, good.
No, I think you're seeing it that way because you probably haven't talked about this before. You're unloading a bit, and you're self-conscious about unloading. But that's why I wanted this podcast to be there, because this is authentic D&D. This isn't the crap that the company is promoting, where everything is always happy and there are always clouds singing in the sky. This is what people who are actually doing this are feeling. And God, man, nothing gets more authentic than, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do precisely, but I'm going to do my best, or I'm going to try to work it this way, or it's going to be like that. So I don't think you're going to have people in the crowd going, wow, what a downer. I think you're going to have people in the crowd nodding their fucking heads and saying, why has nobody said this before?
Right. I'll be interested to see it myself. Just so long as when you edit, it doesn't sound like I'm throwing my players under the bus for not contributing.
No, I don't think anybody thinks that.
Okay, good.
Well, thank you, Jon. That's been terrific. Like I say, I have many of those same feelings, and I think I think as we age as a D&D community, that we're going to see a lot of changes as more and more of us who used to play the game back in the 1980s get into our 60s and into our 70s and still have thoughts about what this game has meant to us over the decades. I think it's still a new game because even us old guys, there's a lot left to discover that we're going to be looking at. My guest today has been Jonathan Becker. I'm Alexis Smolensk, and you've been listening to the Authentic Role-Playing Podcast. Please use the subscriber button and subscribe. If you're looking for more advanced content about Dungeons & Dragons and how to run my game, please visit my main blog at Tao of D&D or buy my books, How to Run, an advanced guide for managing role-playing games, or The Dungeon's Front Door. Both are available on Amazon, iBooks, or Lulu. Or you can visit my game wiki, which can be found at the blog Tao of D&D's Wiki, or you can visit my third blog, Tao's Masterclass, for point-by-point recommendations on how to be a better dungeon master. You can find links for all of this content in the description below. Well, this sounds a little dark, but I think this has been a very, very excellent podcast. I wish the listener the very best for your own campaigns, and I urge you to keep listening and keep reading and keep working on your worlds. Thank you.